The tearing sound had been brief, a metallic shriek swallowed almost instantly by the vacuum. Then came the shudder, a violent spasm that threw Ilara against the console, the safety harness biting into her ribs. Lights flickered, died, then stubbornly resurrected themselves, painting the ruined cockpit in a sickly, urgent red. She gasped, a ragged sound in the sudden, profound silence, the thin air within her helmet tasting metallic and acrid. Outside, where the vibrant tapestry of the Orion arm had just moments ago stretched in serene splendor, now bloomed a chaotic garden of shattered hull plating and drifting debris, sparkling like malevolent diamonds in the unforgiving light of a distant, indifferent sun. Her ship, the Stardust Dreamer, was no longer dreaming. It was a carcass, bleeding precious oxygen and warmth into the cosmic void. Her fingers, trembling despite her training, fumbled for the diagnostic panel. The display, cracked and spiderwebbed, stubbornly refused to fully boot. Just scattered, panicked warnings. Hull breach, life support critical, propulsion offline, power failing. Every system screamed distress, a chorus of digital agony that mirrored the rising terror in her own chest. She had survived, barely. The crash, a collision with some unmarked high-velocity space junk, had ripped through her vessel like a hungry beast, leaving her stranded millions of miles from the nearest human outpost, a solitary speck of life clinging to a dying machine. The silence was absolute, broken only by the faint hiss of her helmet's internal air recycling unit, a sound that suddenly felt impossibly loud, a fragile whisper against the infinite roar of nothingness. Cold. That was the first true antagonist. The ship's internal temperature was plummeting, the thin thermal layers of her flight suit barely holding back the biting chill that seeped through every crevice of the damaged hull. Her breath plumed in tiny ephemeral clouds before being reabsorbed by the suit's filtration system. She had perhaps a few hours of breathable air, if the internal filters held. Power was the next enemy. The emergency battery was depleting at an alarming rate, each dying glow of a console light a further drain on her precious resources. Without power, there would be no heat, no air, no communications, no hope. She pushed herself away from the console, her movements stiff and clumsy in the low gravity. The floor was littered with broken components, sparking wires, and the ghost of spilled nutrient paste. Her emergency pack, mercifully still strapped to its bulkhead, was her immediate goal. Inside, a medkit, a repair kit, and a distress beacon, hopefully still functional. Retrieving it felt like an epic journey across the small, shattered cabin. Each handhold was precarious, each step a gamble against a sharp shard of metal or a loose wire. The beacon, when she finally pried it free, felt impossibly heavy in her gloved hand, a tiny promise of salvation or a cruel joke. She activated it, the small device pulsing with a weak, almost imperceptible light. It would send out a signal, a whisper in the cosmic storm. But who would hear it, and when? The vastness of space, once a source of endless wonder, now pressed down on her with crushing indifference. She looked out through a cracked viewport, not at the debris field, but beyond it, to the stars. Billions of them glittering like spilled salt across a dark tablecloth. Each one a sun, perhaps with its own worlds, its own life. Yet here she was, utterly alone. A single flickering flame against an endless night. Despair clawed at her throat, a physical constriction. No, not yet. Her father's voice, clear as if he stood beside her, echoed in her mind. Never give up, Ilara. Even when the stars are against you, you fight. She took a deep, shuddering breath, the recycled air tasting of effort and resolve. The comms panel was dead, no direct calls. But the emergency beacon, if it worked, needed more power than the dying ship could offer. She remembered the auxiliary power core, tucked away in the maintenance shaft, rarely used, but robust. It was a long shot, a desperate gamble, but it was a shot. Her eyes scanned the shattered interior, seeking the access hatch, a faint memory from her pre-flight checks. The journey would be dangerous, through twisted metal and exposed wiring, with diminishing oxygen and chilling cold. But the alternative was simply to wait for the end. With a new resolve hardening her jaw, Ilara pushed off again, moving with a purpose born of sheer raw will. The distant stars watched, unblinking, as a lone human began her impossible trek, a flicker of defiance in the heart of an indifferent cosmos. The silence remained, but now, beneath it, a faint rhythmic thump, the sound of her own determined heart beat against the vast emptiness.